Jason, you were here at the San Jose Jazz Festival with your tribute to Grover Washington Jr. tour. Can you please tell us a little bit about this production?
Well, I've been, kind of a champion of Grover's music for many years because it's kind of the music that was a lot of the sound that I grew up with in the 70s into the 80s. And when he died, I felt that not enough real attention was paid to his contribution overall, what he did. So I've been putting together a series of concerts, different people, participate in it and everything that just, love what Grover did. And it's coinciding with the release of the CD Grover Live, and, gives us a good reason to go out there and play the music and just have people realize what a lot of the soundtrack to their life was. What I think this is.
We understand that you are also bringing this show to San Diego next March for the Oasis Contemporary Jazz Awards. Please tell us what we can expect.
I'm going to go and kind of taper it. It's going to be a little shorter of a show because there's going to be 2 sets. And it's going to be just, every time I do this, I try to add different songs. Because I don't think that people really realize how many of the songs in there that they really, really love. There's so many, at least 25 songs that like you could do that were really popular.
Well, you produced the first 2 Grover with Love CD in 2001.
Right.
And I assume what inspired you to do this is your love of Grover.
Well, it took a lot of people by shock and everything when he died. And like I said, there was a certain sound in New York when I was coming up in the 70s, and Grover, even though he lived in Philly, that sound was really something that influenced me a lot. And so when he died, I honestly felt that I wanted to do something before somebody else did something and felt like it wasn't as good.
So how did you originally meet Grover?
I met Grover in the 80s through Marcus Miller. We were making an album with Grover and did some music on the Strawberry Moon album. And that's when I met Grover in the studio. Well, Grover played on a number of my different productions. I mean, after we became friends and everything, when I would have an interesting project, whether it was a solo album or the soundtrack to this movie that I did, or the Love Affair music of Yvonne Lins, which was actually Grover's last performance in the studio, I would call him and see if he was into it, because I just knew that one of my things you have to learn about being a producer is you have to learn about being a casting character and know the right people to cast in your productions.
Well, this year you produced and released Grover Live, a CD recorded by Grover in upstate New York performance in 1997. Please tell us about this project.
Grover's wife came up to me a couple of years ago and told me that she had all these digital tapes of live concerts and wanted to know if there was anything that she thought that could be done with it, if people would be interested. And I was like just flabbergasted, and I didn't know what to expect. And when I heard them, I knew that there was something there because they were all such incredible performances. And so we went through all of these different tapes to find the right one to release first, and to see how the marketplace would react and everything to it, because we believe Grover has millions of fans, and these days it's not about whether we think the record could sell. It's about reaching the people that would buy it, because every place I go or I play, people buy the CD. So that's kind of the object, is to just keep it going and to have people really hear, because he was a person that I wanted to see. When you listen to the CD, you hear his playing that isn't put under any kind of constraints or format or anything. And he goes and just, shows what it's like to really play the music.
Well, Miles Davis is another person you worked with. Please share with us what it was like to work with this icon in the music industry.
Well, that was kind of one of the reasons why I really wanted to pursue playing music, because it was my dream to work with Miles. And so many times, when you set out to do something, a lot of times it doesn't happen. And I had come back and to New York and kind of never understood how I would ever get to work with Miles, and how it is people have to hear about you through word of mouth. Excuse me. So through Marcus, Miles picked up on what I was doing with my synthesizers back then, and so we met and started working on the album Tutu, and it was just, you know, a surrealistic experience, because this person you think of as just a giant among giants, and now you're in his presence. And so you say to yourself, wow, I mean, if I'm here, something is up, because the people that came before me are all my heroes and icons. So maybe it does mean something, you know, and I take it with me every day.
Well, you did several albums with Miles, most noticeably Tutu.
You know, it's a kind of record that had a huge effect on people moving forward, using keyboards and synthesizers and the possibilities that were available to them. And as usual, Miles was somebody who kind of led the way. But Miles, the more that I learned about it, the more that I saw that I understood why he became who he became, was because there was always somebody to feed off of. And whether it was back in the 60s, Gil Evans, or whether it was back with Pio Macero and his bands with Wayne Shorter and guys, there was always somebody to feed off of it. In this case, it was Marcus, and Marcus was the arranger and the composer of the music, you know. And so Marcus had a team around him of people, you know, like small, of course, you know, basically just me and this production coordinator, who, you know, were the right people to be around Miles at this time. And you know, doing all the synth programming on the record and everything was, you know, something that they were looking at me to help, you know, take the music to the next level, which was to create an atmosphere for him to play these great melodies, because it's still about the melody to me, and the melodies were there on the song.
Well, you did a tribute to Miles Davis in 2005, your Miles to Miles CD. On it, there's only one cover of a Miles Davis composition.
Right.
The rest are your original compositions.
Right.
Why did you decide to take this approach?
Well, for the reason of, you know, of not calling it a tribute as much as an homage, you know, because I think that Miles would have been upset at me for going and covering songs of his that were already done. It was never about going and doing the same thing again with him. And so how I looked about it was like, what was the influence that he had on me, and how I feel like what he gave me, he would have appreciated. So I kind of wrote these songs around different themes, and many of them were stories that I was involved. Like Ferrari was about him and taking me on a ride in his car. Butter Pecan was his love of butter pecan ice cream, and Bikini was his love of, you know, women and the form, the human form, which I saw many times through his artwork and everything. So it kind of influenced me through that to see, like, okay, well, here I am, and now I can go and call on these people that I think are the cutting edge musicians, you know, that would be the ones who, you know, could help me bring this music out into the forefront and everything. You know, unfortunately, you know, there's a divide in music, and it was either like, oh, it's like straight ahead, or oh, it's smooth jazz, and both camps never meet or don't want to meet. And so my thing was just to make great melodies and give it that approach. And so I had to find that right ground in the middle, and it was really, really hard, you know, from many different aspects. But I feel it's my best album as a writer and producer.
It's an excellent album.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yes, I don't think it's got as much credit as it deserves to
Thank
have.
you.